can spread the love. So anyway, either way. Well, on that note, the only reason I know about them is because Julie was like, I like your vibe. I want you in here. I like that you're not talking about diets. Yeah, I don't really do that. It's just not my vibe. So if you don't know me, I'm Eden Morris. I'm a registered dietitian, leisure medal athlete, former collegiate softball player, and I'm originally from Cohutta, Georgia, which no one knows what it is, but it's on the border of Georgia and Tennessee. And I've lived in Jackson for about 5 years. I moved here permanently after I got divorced, which is an interesting time to move somewhere new, but I think it's kind of a good time because you can start over, you can do things from scratch. And so I learned how to mountain bike, I learned how to ski, and it kind of was a nice way to redirect some of the sadness into something positive. But to back up a little bit more, I played softball at Texas A&M, my degree was psychology, and then due to my own nutrition issues, I decided to pursue a master's in nutrition and dietetics from Georgia State and Atlanta University. My why for nutrition, and Tori and I have very similar whys, which is why we vibe so much, but I had a very positive relationship with food in high school, but I wouldn't say that I had a positive relationship with my body. Kind of what Julie was talking about, like the culture we grow up in, we're influenced by our mothers, and what they were influenced by. Growing up in the South, unfortunately, I was taught that women are supposed to be valued off of how they look, and I did take that to heart, and we all weighed ourselves every day, and I just didn't have that acceptance of my body. And I also think I struggled because I was taller than all the other girls, more muscular, and yeah. So when I went to college, even though I still had this good relationship with food, it kind of changed based off of what collegiate athletes feel like we have to live up to, and sometimes the way our coaches speak to us. And so I started to develop a bad relationship with food and kind of used it as a means of control and other things felt out of control in my life. So I started to eat clean. I would underfuel around workouts, hoping to be leaner, and I would do extra workouts on top of team workouts. I never allowed dessert, and if I did, I would binge it. Sometimes I would purge that too. And what's interesting about that history is it's very common with a lot of collegiate athletes. It's just not really discussed. It's kind of like this dark secret we all have. But I was very lean, and teammates and other women would make positive comments on how lean I was, and they wanted that too. And so they didn't know that they were fueling disordered behaviors behind the scenes. So my senior year, this all like crashed and burned because I ended up breaking 3 bones in my foot. And that was due to under eating. So as a senior, I was diagnosed with osteopenia. I had had a period in 3 years, and I was just really messed up about food. So again, I said earlier, my mental health really had an impact on the choices I made nutritionally. And from that standpoint, that's why I chose to kind of combine my undergraduate degree into a master's degree of nutrition. And since moving to Jackson, the more I've gotten into mountain sports, the more I've noticed that so many of us in this community are confused about food, and we kind of are doing the same things that I did, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, since we don't know any better. So this is why I started my private practice, Teton Performance Nutrition, in 2020, and it's the pandemic. And it's to help members of this community to adopt a fueling mindset instead of a dieting mindset. Our bodies perform so much better when we give them more energy, and it's easier to do that if we reject diet culture, especially since so many of us are incredibly active in this community, even if we don't consider ourselves athletes. To me, if you enjoy moving your body, you're an athlete. So if you come to gym classes, you are an athlete. Consider yourself that or not. But that's a little about me. Now I'm going to pass the headset over to Tori.
All right. So, thanks, Eden. We have very similar stories, and it's fun to connect with people with similar backgrounds. However, I'm not from the South. I'm from Boston originally. I grew up in like a really small town outside Boston, lived there until I moved to Jackson in 2013. I followed my cousin out here. She convinced me to come out here for a winter, and here I am, so years later. I played lacrosse and ran cross country at collegiate level, and always thought that team sports were like my thing. And then I moved to Jackson, and I was like, oh my gosh, now it's one of these things. So I became kind of a mountain athlete, you could say. I trail run, mountain bike, backcountry ski, do all the same things that you probably all do. And I also got my master's in nutrition. More recently, I just finished my grad school program like a few months ago, and then just passed the dietitian exam a month ago. So I'm more recent of a dietitian than Eden, but that kind of transitions into my why and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Throughout my childhood, I didn't have a good relationship with food. I didn't have a good relationship with my body. I constantly was feeling guilty about what I was eating, what I was putting into my body. I wasn't small enough. I wasn't fit enough. I played 3 sports at a varsity level in high school, and I never felt like I was an athlete or I didn't look like an athlete. I would run 5+ miles after cross-country practice or after lacrosse practice because I wanted to fit into that tiny box that athletes are supposed to look like or, fit into that box. So I really struggled with eating enough and looking at myself in a way that was positive. Then I went to college and it all became so much worse. I was a 2-sport athlete. I was running cross country where most people on my cross country team were small and thin, and I have never looked like that. And so that kind of fueled even more disordered eating. I started restricting, I started binging, I started purging. It was really, really unhealthy, but I had no idea that was wrong. I was like, oh, everyone else is probably doing this. Like, this is totally normal, and no one's approaching me about it. So I don't think that I'm doing anything wrong. That continued. It got worse throughout college. I moved here, and then I was comparing myself to mountain athletes. It's always that comparison factor. You're always looking at other people. You're always saying, I don't look like that. Why is that? And then it just kept getting worse, and I still had no idea that what I was doing was wrong. And I was like, I'm going to become a dietitian. I'm going to help people look like I do or feel like I do and eat clean and eat all the right foods. And I got to grad school, and within 2 weeks I was like, oh my gosh, I have disordered eating. I have a horrible relationship with my body. So I went into grad school thinking like, I'm doing everything right. I'm the perfect specimen of nutrition, and look at me go, I'm going to help everyone else. And then I was like, oh my gosh, my world is coming crashing down. And I have made it my goal since that realization to help others in the same position that I was, looking at themselves in a negative way, looking at food in a negative way, and being like, it doesn't always have to be like this. And it's okay that you had no idea that this was happening and that this might not be the best way to live, but I'm here to help you get through it and get you to the other side, because there's another side of living, and it's not about counting calories or about what you look like. About how you feel and how you feel with your body. So that's my why. Yay.
Okay, guys, so she said I've been a dietitian no longer than her. And I followed her before she went to grad school, and her social media was like, it was very, like, these ingredients cause inflammation, and with this clean ingredients, this purposes, and I was like, oh. And then, so I was in this mastermind for sports nutrition, and I'm friends with a few other mountain sports dietitians. It's a very small world, and one of them was like, there's this girl that's in my grad school class, and she's from Jackson. I think you might know her. I'm like, oh, I know her. And so then she came into the group, and she had a totally different approach. And I was like, she had her aha moment. And just like I had to break bones for my aha moment. Like hers was like she was literally in the program, and it was like, whoa, what I've been doing is wrong. And I think when I broke those bones, I ended up reading a lot of research around female athlete triad, which is what I had. And I read the definition of disordered eating. I'm like, well, that's me. I don't have a full-blown eating disorder, but I'm not normal with food. And I think a lot of us are kind of stuck in that little gray area right there. So I'd love to shift. So, Tori was actually on my podcast recently, and I titled it From Holistic to Realistic. Because I was like, she just changed. I love that shift. I just thought it was great. So today we wanted to kind of chat with you guys about pre-workout nutrition and post-workout nutrition, since you're coming in here and taking classes or doing things prepared for ski season, we want you to get the most out of them. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to fuel before and after and have a very tailored strategy to do that. So the main goal with pre-workout nutrition is you want to top off your liver glycogen stores before you start working out. And glycogen is the stored form of carbohydrates. Have you guys heard that before? Nice, okay. So we like to say that you should aim for 30 to 60 grams of fast fuel, also known as simple carbohydrates, the things that you see demonized so much in nutrition and diet culture, but they're actually perfect right before workout, and they're perfect during endurance sports too. We might chat about that, we'll see, but so we want you to keep your pre-workout fuel low in fiber, low in protein, and low in fat, because as soon as you start working out, your body will shift blood away from your GI tract, and if it's trying to break down very complex things, you're going to end up with indigestion. So if you take in simpler fuel that's more easily broken down, it'll literally be in your bloodstream when you start using your muscles, and then it's usable fuel for you when you start working out. So simple sugars and refined options like white bread are actually more ideal than like multigrain bread, which we always see people say, oh, buy multigrain bread because of the fiber. There's a time and place for both. So Tori and I have a list of pre-workout snacks that we can send you if you would like. If you give us your email, we can definitely send that to you. But just to give you an idea of some of my own favorite pre-workout snacks, whether I'm going to do a strength workout in the morning, or if I'm about to go for a mountain bike ride, or even skiing. Like if I'm a mountain host in the winter, so I always have like pocket snacks. I like fresh fruit, like a banana. I love dried fruit. I feel like mangoes and dried apricots have been my go-to for years now. Fruit juice is an easy one. And I think that one's an interesting one for me because it was a food fear in the past. I was like, this is empty calories, I can't have this. And I think that when you become an athlete in this realm, like you have to overcome some of those fears and take more of a fueling mindset towards that. So fruit juice, you can do apple juice or orange juice, half a bagel with honey and cinnamon. You can do a sports gel. I like Neuro Energy. Those are just some options too. Any of you? Does any of that sound good to you? Something cool. So my advice there would be to kind of look at the portion sizes to see what 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate looks like. So for example, one banana is around 30 grams of carbs, or 5 to 7 pieces of dried mango, that's about 30 grams of carbs. So that's what I do. Oh, and usually I like to pair it with a cup of coffee, which leads me into my next little segue. Pre-workout supplements. I actually don't take any pre-workout supplements. Do you take any pre-workout supplements? Do you take any pre-workout supplements? Okay. Yeah, I just prefer to eat food instead. I often pair my pre-workout carbs with a cup of coffee because the most effective, well-researched ergogenic aids are carbohydrates and caffeine. Not any fancy supplement, but there are other supplements that do have some research behind them, and those include creatine, beta-alanine, bicarbonate, and beetroot juice and nitrate. Beetroot juice or nitrate. Yeah. These are not things I would buy, but I'm just saying they do have research behind them. I've gotten questions on Instagram about creatine, and I think it's actually very good for quick burst sports, or HIIT classes, things like that. It might give you a little bit of an extra boost, but you don't need it. So if you do want to try a pre-workout supplement, I always tell people to ask themselves these questions. Is it safe? Is it legal? Is it effective? Is there a more affordable option? We live in Jackson, it's expensive. I don't need to say that in my head. Is it third-party tested? Does it have some other rigorous testing to make sure that whatever's on the label is what's actually in there? Because supplements are not regulated by the FDA, and if you have food allergies or sensitivities, sometimes that supplement might be contaminated. So just some questions to keep in mind. Fasted training, I think Tori's going to talk about this too. I don't recommend this, and I know some people when they get up in the morning, they're like, well, I don't have an appetite in the morning, I don't want to eat anything, or like their workout is at 6 a.m. and they get up at 5:30. That's a perfect opportunity for a cup of fruit juice. Something liquid that's easy to digest, and you can go straight to your workout and be fine. The reason I do not recommend fasted workouts, especially for women, is because it does throw off our hormones to where it can lead to what I had, which is female athlete triad. Also, our cortisol production is a little higher in the morning, and that's normal. We have this balance of cortisol and melatonin that impacts our circadian rhythms. But if you get to a point where you are training fasted regularly, you raise cortisol levels too much, which can lead to muscle breakdown and fat storage, which is the opposite of what most of us want.
So fasted?
Fasted, yeah.
Like fasted.
Yes. Yeah, so like if you wake up in the morning and, so you've been fasting all night, you were asleep, and you go work out without eating anything, that's fasted training. We also see that really promoted in like the endurance world. I feel like the athlete community has a lot of people that are trying to do fasted training to promote fat adaptation, and it's a theory, and there's a lot more research to promote fuel workouts and fuel training.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question? I mean, we do have a one token male in the room.
Yeah.
Do the amounts that you suggest, is it by weight? Do you find that males are different versus females, or do you find that like those are basic for?
I would actually say those are pretty basic for men and women, but like the amounts increase based off of the intensity of the workout you're gonna do.
Okay.
So, but based off of fasted training, I said it impacts women's hormones. It's also been shown to decrease testosterone production in men. So, why is that not advertised? Because like, no guy would be like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Okay. Okay, so I get to talk about endurance or recovery, nutrition. It's one of my favorite topics, nutrition for recovery. I feel like it's so often overlooked, but it is so freaking important. And if there's anything that you remember from the next 15 minutes or however long I talk, it's just to please eat something. I'm gonna go into like the nitty gritty about what's ideal based on endurance and strength and whatnot, but like if you don't remember any of it, just eat something. Yeah, so I feel like recovery nutrition is really often overlooked. We as athletes go to our workout class or go on the bike or go up Josie's and we're like, sweet, we got our workout in, maybe we fueled a little bit before, maybe we fueled a little bit during, but like then we're finished and we're like, awesome, check that off the list, got my workout in, now I'm gonna go about my day. I'm gonna go pick up the kids, I'm gonna go to class, I'm gonna go to work, and we're not fueling afterwards. And that is such a missed opportunity for recovery, for increased muscle growth, for feeling our best throughout the day. Remember, when we're working out, we're actually breaking down our muscles. It is not until we recover, rest, or fuel our bodies with food that we're actually getting stronger. So, again, I'm going to go into the nitty gritty, but please just eat something after you So, recovery is a little different when it comes to recovery for strength workouts and recovery for endurance workouts. So, I'm going to break it down. When I'm talking about endurance workouts, I mean like anything over like 60 minutes outside, usually running, biking, hiking, ski touring, that kind of stuff. Whereas strength workouts is anything that you're working a specific muscle group or you're doing repetitive motions, working in a gym or doing a HIIT class or doing some sort of like cardio workout. That's what I mean by strength workouts. All right. So recovery for endurance workouts. Again, this is anything over like 60 minutes. So like a 60-minute run, 60-minute hike up Josie's. The main macronutrient that we want to focus on is carbohydrates. A lot of people just automatically think that protein is most important for recovery, and that is true for strength workouts, but for endurance workouts, it's really important to consume carbohydrates within the first like hour or so. And that's important because let's think about what's going on in our body as we're doing those endurance workouts. We are breaking down glycogen stores, as Eden mentioned. So there's two types of carbohydrates. There's glucose, that is the carbohydrate in your blood. That increases your blood sugar, also known as like blood glucose levels. And if you're exercising and eating, that's what you're using. It's being used right away. When it's not being used right away, so when you're like sitting at your desk or just not exercising, it's going into your muscles and liver and being stored as glycogen. That's just a little side note. So you're using those glycogen stores when you're practicing endurance exercise for long periods of time. So the most important thing is to replace those glycogen stores through eating carbohydrates. And there are some numbers here. I'm going to briefly touch on them just because if you're a numbers person, it's kind of interesting. Anything from 60 minutes to like 2 hours, you want to have 1 gram of carb for every kilogram of your body weight. So how you get to kilograms from pounds is dividing your body weight by 2.2. So say someone weighs like 150 pounds, their weight in kilograms would be like 65, 68. So if you're working out and you do a run for like 90 minutes, then you want to have 68 grams of carbs right after that run. 68! That number only continues to increase as you're working out for longer. So from 2 to 3 hours, it's 2 grams of carbs per kilogram, and then anything over 4 hours is actually 4 grams of carbohydrates. So if you're not a numbers person, don't like worry about it, but just know that that's like a lot of carbs. Like you need to eat a lot of carbs. And to figure out what that looks like, so if you are a numbers person and you do calculate, just look at nutrition labels, figure out like what your normal post-workout snack looks like, and kind of compare it to those numbers and be like, okay, what can I add? It's usually what can I add, it's not what can I take away, but what can I add to make this the ideal post-endurance exercise snack?
Okay, let's put it into perspective.
Let's put it into perspective.
Oh my.
Do you want me to read it?
I don't know if it's on the little one.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like it has to.
Oh, no, there you go. Yeah,
Really
sorry.
Okay, so in this tiny little piece, oh, actually that's cute. Oh, I can flip it around. Okay, so carbs are 16 grams of carbs in this tiny one, which is like honestly pretty good for like one little bite, 16 grams of carbs. But think about it, if you weigh around 150 pounds and you exercise for an hour, 2 hours, you need to eat like four of these, which is honestly not that bad, but just keep that in mind. And then if you're doing like a whole day in the park, like 4 hours plus, you need to eat like 30 of those. What I recommend, maybe like.
So in perspective,
But in
let's say if we had that, what would be something great maybe to pair?
yeah, so you compare it with, so say you went for like an hour and a half, and you're like, okay, I need 60 grams of carbs. So you know you have like 15 to 20 here. We could pair it with a banana or like another piece of fruit. You could pair it with fruit juice. And then I'm also going to talk about like the protein factor in endurance exercise recovery. But yeah, like any sort of fruit, any sort of like bread, like whole grain bread. I know Eden mentioned like before working out, the white bread is ideal, but when we're post-workout, we can have those whole grains. We can have those complex carbs because we're not worried about the GI distress. We've already worked out. So we can fuel our bodies or recover with complex carbs. So yeah, and then moving on to protein. So with endurance exercise, we all know now that carbs are our main consideration, but we also want to add a little bit of protein in there as well. The ideal ratio is 4 parts carbohydrate to 1 part protein. So say we were having the 60 grams of carbs, you would want to have around 15 grams of protein to make the 4 to 1. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. Just listen to your body, and if you're not a numbers person, be like, okay, what can I grab that has a ton of carbohydrates and then like a little bit of protein? Eat it, see how you feel. If you have a headache or you're tired at the end of the day, you probably didn't eat enough. So then, yeah, or you have cravings at the end. If you have like sweet cravings, then you probably didn't eat enough. And it's just another opportunity for you to go back and adjust. If you don't like looking at the calories or the nutrition facts, it doesn't mean you can't do this. You just have to be more in tune with how you're feeling, and that's beneficial in every regard. So, and I do want to touch on fasted endurance workouts as well, because it is a topic of contention. So recovery from endurance workouts, especially fasted, is so important. So say, for example, like Eden said, you wake up, you go for a run, you finish your workout, and then you go on about your day. So not only did you not eat something before, so you don't have that blood glucose or high amounts of blood glucose, you also have limited glycogen stores because when you're sleeping, your body was using that up. So not only are your body like, you didn't fuel me before, but also I'm running on fumes because I just used up all these glycogen stores while you were sleeping to keep you alive. So do not recommend. But if you are like, oh my gosh, I'm running and I forgot to eat, it's okay. Just make sure you're having a snack or meal with that 4-to-1 carbs to protein ratio within that first hour. If you don't, it's just really not setting your body up for success. Some of my favorites are like a peanut butter and banana smoothie that has a large like carb focus with a little bit of protein. Another one that I've been doing is a waffle peanut butter and fruit sandwich. So you chew frozen waffles and you put peanut butter and fruit in and you eat it like a sandwich. And then like pretzels, veggies, and hummus, a scratch recovery shake, or like a chocolate milk and a banana. It's so funny. Everyone demonizes chocolate milk, and it actually has the perfect 4-to-1 carb.
The reason I demonized it is because I got sick of it in college. And I'm tired of drinking.
I just didn't know how my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so also one thing I'll mention, like I kind of touched on this before, but if you're feeling ravenous after your workout, if you finish your run and you're like, oh my God, I can eat my entire kitchen, that means you didn't fuel appropriately pre or during your workouts. And that's just another way to reflect and be like, okay, how can I learn from this? I'm like face deep in my cabinet and I can eat everything. Like, how can I adjust to make sure that I'm finishing my workout and being like, I can eat. Like, this is cool. Yeah, you should always be energized and satisfied throughout the day, even after like a 3-hour run. So then I just want to touch on strength workouts as well, because I know if you're working out a bit or doing ski fit, you're definitely lifting weights and doing strength workouts. So when it comes to recovery from strength, so any workout that targets specific muscles, the macronutrients actually flip. So you're going to focus more on protein and then add a little bit of carbs on the side as well. So I always say like 20 grams of protein is ideal, 20 to 30 grams after a strength workout. So again, if you're not a numbers person, just be like, okay, what is a food that I know that I like to eat that has a lot of protein?
An egg.
Yeah, that could be an egg. That could be like a smoothie with protein pudding. Yeah.
21 grams
And
of
then,
protein.
exactly. So focus on the protein. Be like, okay, this is what I'm basing my meal off of, and then add a little bit of carbs on the side, like a piece of toast. It doesn't have to be an exact science, as I said before. Just make sure you're eating something, and you'll feel. Another common question I get is, can I do my strength workouts fasted? The short answer is yes, you can.
I wouldn't.
But you do have to be really intentional about the workouts that you're doing. I would never recommend doing a fasted strength workout if it has like any like fast movements in it. Like maybe if you're doing just really heavy, intentional, like focusing on form workouts, you can get away with fasted training because you are mostly relying on your fat as fuel. But I still wouldn't totally recommend it. But it's something, if you're going to do any workout fasted, I would say like a heavy set of weightlifting when you're really focusing on like your form and you're not running around. That's really the only time.
I wouldn't do leg day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood going there, and like, yeah.
I just feel like so many people are like,
I'm
I'm burning fat. Like my heart rate is up. But so I just wanted to put there. But again, like if you're being like, okay, I do want to practice like fasted workouts just because you saw it on Instagram and you're like, if you're ever feeling lightheaded, or if you like go to pick up a weight and you're like, whoa, like I'm really tired, that is a sign that you should not be not eating. So again, listen to your body. That's the theme, eating and listening to your body. And then snacks with protein first, carbs second. I like a tuna smoked salmon, or like turkey sandwich with veggies. A cheesecake and quesadilla with like white kale, Greek yogurt, or a cheesy parfait with granola and berries, and then a peanut butter banana smoothie with protein powder wrap. And then one last thing to note, I kind of mentioned this before, but if anyone gets done with a training session and you don't have an appetite, if you're gonna have another hard day tomorrow, or you have like a long day in the office, or your workout was fasted, do whatever you can to have food. You have to optimize that recovery, and even if it's just like a smoothie or shake or a banana, eat that, and then go like lay in the river, go lay in the grass, go take a shower, do whatever you gotta do to like get to the place where you're like, okay, now I can have like a balanced meal. Try to have that within 2 to 3 hours, but again, just eat something after your workout. So yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
You are considering cardio and HIIT workouts as a strength workout rather than an endurance, even like an hour long.
I consider HIIT strength.
Yeah. Cardio or like a HIIT workout. I would say usually anything that's like done in the gym, unless it's like an hour on the treadmill or an hour on like a bike, that's gonna be a strength workout.
So, for example, if I take the Versa Climber class with Julie, that really like taxes my legs a lot. I consider it a strength workout. And so, I mean, just to give you an example of how I might fuel that workout, I might have that pre-workout snack I talked about, and I might go home and have a smoothie. Because just like Tori said, sometimes when you do something that you exerted yourself a lot, you might not feel hungry after. You might just be like, I want to throw up by anything. Liquids I find to be a little bit easier to digest after that. But one thing I kind of had to give myself permission to heal from like disordered eating at the time. It was very much, I had a dietitian in Atlanta who worked for the Falcons and other sports teams. He said, I want you to eat through function. This is not about you being hungry or not. This is about healing your body and fueling your body accordingly. And there was also an article that came out from Outside Magazine earlier this year about this same type thing, where if you are engaging in endurance activities, if you are an active individual, sometimes you can't go off your hunger and full excuse because your body's like, I can't eat right now. So one thing we like to say for endurance activities is to fuel to a plan. Don't go off your thirst, don't go off your hunger, go off with certain targets instead. And so that's what she's saying. After a workout, we have certain targets. Before a workout, we have certain targets. And when we're talking about endurance, we have certain recommendations based off of that too.
Yeah. And I guess like where the intuitive eating, which is what I practice and what
I do too.
help my clients to practice as well. It's not completely intuitive eating because you do have to just be like, okay, I finished a workout, like I know I need to eat. But where the intuitive eating comes into play is like, I know I have this plethora of foods that I can choose from, and like what will serve me the most.
Intuitively sounds the best.
Yeah.
Mentally. And
exactly. And if that's a smoothie, if that's a milkshake,
yeah. I
Yeah,
actually, we've talked about this. I think that kind of moving to Jackson like forced me to even more lean into food freedom. And there's been times when I take things out in the skin track where a nutritionist might be like, that's not healthy. It's literally like a cookie from Persephone. And I'm like, don't care, it's got carbs. Yeah. And that's the point. It's like, I'm out here doing something I'm able to intuitively pick what I want. And just to add one more thing to recovery, there are actually 2 more things. So for recovery, if you're not a numbers person, one thing that you will hear a lot of sports dietitians talk about is the 3 R's for recovery. It's rebuild, replenish, and rehydrate. So if you're rebuilding your muscles with protein. Replenish, you're replenishing your muscles, your glycogen stores with carbohydrate. And then rehydrate, if you sweated a lot, you want to replace the fluids you lost. And then one more thing why it's so important to eat a snack or a meal within 1 to 2 hours after your workout, 1 hour if you can. There is an enzyme called glycogen synthase that is most active within those first couple of hours after, and your body is looking for carbohydrates to put them back into your muscles. So if you're not fueling during that time, you're not going to recover as well and have as much quick energy for the next workout. And I remember when I read that, I'm like, cool, I can eat after. I'm actually good to it. Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
And another note on that is when you're like an hour after your workout, within that time, your body is more likely to store glycogen in your muscles for energy rather than fat.
right.
Which is just
Yeah,
fat.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
like we're all, I feel like all of our content is like, more carbs.
Yeah. I'm like, how many more carbs do you think?
Find your way than last time.
Yeah.
She had a reel and it was like, oh gosh, better ingredients, better pizza. It was like Papa John's, yeah. But it was like better dishes, better muscles, better. It's like all the ways you can do it, yeah. So, do you have any more questions?
Yeah. Virtual dietitian.
Well, one of the things we want to tell you guys about is we teamed up to create a Sports Nutrition Bootcamp, and it's a 6-week course based off of some of the information we gave you, but it's even more complete. And it starts next Wednesday, but we have registration open this week, and we're giving you guys a discount. So it's $150, so you get $50 off. The original price is $299, with that it's $250. Inside it, we will have the course itself. So the first week we'll be talking about how to build a balanced plate, pre-workout nutrition. Second week we're talking about recovery. I don't have it, check it in my notes. Another week will be hydration and GI stress. Another one will be inflammation, how to reduce it. Another week will be long-term meal planning. And then the last week we have this big comprehensive Q&A, and also we're bringing in a guest speaker. And in addition to the course, you get a Sport Nutrition Fueling ebook, which you can use all winter long, pre-workout, post-workout snack lists, access to 2 awesome dietitians, and we're also going to do like a mindset workbook as well. So kind of giving you more intention behind what you're doing and how you're feeling your body. Yeah, it's called Sport Nutrition Bootcamp. Julie has a flyer somewhere. There's a QR code.
I know it sounds weird, but
No, it doesn't, because we're going to go in there. Yeah, so registration closes this Friday, and the first class is next Wednesday. All lessons are going to be virtual, so if you can't make it, we're going to record it, and you'll get the replay of the lesson each week. So, yeah. Do you have anything to add, Julie? That's a good idea. Yeah, I think so.
I just am very passionate about, we're both very passionate about what we do. And I know we're like setting up this boot camp, and we definitely encourage anyone who's interested to apply or sign up. But if you ever have questions, or if you're ever like confused or down and out about whatever it is regarding nutrition or your body, please reach out. I am so willing to give advice over Instagram, so you don't follow the advice of someone else that might not be very reputable. And I think you didn't feel the same way. So yeah, we're always here for you, and think of us as your personal dietitian for the rest of the day.
You guys always have great ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been telling her, it's like, she's totally in my head. I've been in
Yeah, I'm in her head.
Oh.
I used to be so mindful about getting up, and the crazier life was, or, I mean, like running a fitness facility during a pandemic was so much fun. And, like depressed, and I don't even, it was hours sometimes before I would eat. And that's so not like me, because girlfriend likes to eat. I like it to be thoughtful, but I just I have to change. I have to, and learning, to be mindful like that,
I like catchphrases, I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one, I've had people send this to me, I always say, your workout is not done until you've recovered from it. Basically, it's not finished until you ate something. And I've had people send me that quote, and I'm like, aha. But I just am happy that you're eating carbs before all the classes you teach.
Yeah.
You're adding carbs to your caffeine.
I know, and there's a lot of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, but I like what Tori said. I mean, I'm really trying to shift my social media away from attacking other nutrition influencers who may not be as credible, and kind of more showing how we can just shift our mindset away from that dieting mindset more to a fueling mindset. I talk about things I had to let go of in my own head. I had right way to eat or wrong way to eat or wrong way to eat. I had to stop demonizing ingredients, and I had to kind of continue to have these other catchphrases in my head over and over again, and that's why I repeat them all the time, because it did help me. And then I also follow people that are really trying to do the same thing. I follow several therapists, psychologists, and of course, because I love those kinds of things, but it helps me to see that they're giving the same advice. It's very much there is no black and white when it comes to nutrition. You have to find what works for you, and a lot of it is you kind of have to let go of all the rules that have been beaten into your brain that you were, mistakes all the time.
And I will say life changes a million times in your season of life, where, your activity changes, what you can do, what you are doing, but if you can have a healthy mindset with food and with what you're doing, to be mindful, for the activities that you're performing in a different sense than from, physical appearance or whatever, but just to fuel properly. I mean, that is always, right? And trying to teach your kids to feel good. Can we get a picture before you go?
Yeah.
Okay. get your bars. We need everyone to have like bars.
Do you mean to stop this recording?
Yeah, we can't just get. We can't just get